some that are just coming through with their coffees. But it is my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Levin Handschuh.
Hi, yeah, as previously stated, my name is Levin Handschuh. I'm by profession, I'm a director, opera director actually, from Hamburg in Germany. And I trained to be like a classical opera, but then during university I did the mistake and started reading Alan Moore, and then it went down great. And nowadays I don't do classical opera so much anymore. So we're going to talk about Meet the ARBEITERKLASSE, which is German, or part German for Meet the Working Class, which was a, let's say, a Voodoo-Brecht, Shibari, Marx performance piece from 2020. Before we begin, I think I did not see so many faces during the screening. Am I right that you did not see the movie except for you and you? Because in that case I would show the trailer. It's 2 minutes long, and so we bring you guys all up to speed, and then start with the presentation, if that's all right with you. Perfect. And even if it isn't?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Okay, here we go. Is there a movie window now? Perfect, yeah. And then we go like this.
Ja. In den letzten Wochen des Juni 1863 verstarb Mary Ann Walkley, nachdem sie 26,5 Stunden ohne Unterlass gearbeitet hat. Es reicht nicht, in den Abgrund zu blicken, um ihn zu verstehen. Man muss ihm schon ein Stück entgegenkommen. Sich auf ihn einlassen. Die Perspektive wechseln. Sie ist die Unholy Mary, die unheilige Maria. Unheilig ist sie, weil sie nicht heilig sein kann. Denn das, was wir heilig nennen, ist das Kapital.
Gewöhnt, dass es gar nicht mehr so richtig vielleicht nach Fleisch aussieht. Zumindest würden wir erschreckt sein, wenn wir etwas serviert bekommen, bei dem die Augen des Tieres noch da sind. Nur bei Fischen würden wir so etwas. Und ein Schweigen war über den Häuserdächern und die Gastronomie.
Yes, here we go. So if anybody wants to see the whole movie, it's complete. It's on YouTube, because the whole thing was a project which happened during the COVID pandemic. We had a lockdown in Germany, and so the Markthalle Hamburg, which is a concert location, basically mostly for metal concerts, did a format called Ghost Concerts, where they invited bands to play in front of an empty audience hall and then just streamed it on YouTube. And when they asked some friends of mine, they approached me about, could we do a bit more than just having a concert? And I was like, yes, we can. I'm sorry, I just have to take some, have to look at my notes as you realize I'm not a native speaker. So the performance Meet the Arbeiterklasse, as I said, mixed up voodoo, Bertolt Brecht, German playwright, shibari, or basically bondage, Karl Marx, and it all happened in 2020, and it took inspiration from some actual events that happened during that time in Germany. There was a huge scandal involving a meat processor, a meat baron, so to speak, called Clemens Tönnies, which I will tell you more about in a minute. And the idea was to have a performance piece that is actually in a magical tradition of theater, and in the tradition of magic, and to have a magical approach, because what I want to talk today about is the idea of dare more magic. Dare more magic in arts, dare more in theater, because I think it would do actually some good. And what I also want to talk about in the last minutes is the idea of cultural appropriation. Because what I actually do, as you can clearly see, I'm a European white guy and I do voodoo. I think that is a bit problematic. I talked to a lot of experts about that. I will tell you my approach of how I think it's justified, but I'm very excited to hear your opinion about it, because I'm not really done with this process of how I appropriate other magical traditions. So the whole thing was kind of a Fluxus happening event. We had only 4 hours to put it together and to film it. That's why it looks a bit shaky at times, because normally they just film concerts and we did like a whole performance piece. So I gathered, as you can see on that graphic, a lot of different artists and asked them all to contribute a specific thing, and then put it all together in rehearsal and just and I just filmed the whole thing. So, and we had no money, of course. But most of the time, I think, especially these restrictions, let there be something beautiful. And in this case, it actually happened. I'm quite happy how it turned out. And there's now over 2,000 clicks on YouTube, which is, for German theater, it's actually a lot. That's a lot. So I'm quite happy of how that turned out. So, now there's a blank. And now we have a face. This is Bertolt Brecht, the German playwright. He wrote a piece called Saint Joan of the Stockyards. And he wrote it in, I'm bad with numbers, it's 1931? Yeah, 1931. He wrote that piece in 1931. It's basically a story about a working class girl who works at a meat factory and wants to start a revolution against the meat baron called Mauler. Now, in 2020, we had the scandal involving Clemens Tönnies, which is this dude here. And he, from all I could gather, he's exactly like he looks. He's a billionaire, he's actually a billionaire, and the scandal was that he had not one, not two, he had 3 outbreaks of corona in 2 months in his meat processing factories because of the bad conditions the workers worked in. And during the investigation, it came out that the workers, all immigrants, were locked in the factory, were locked up in the factory, and they were also locked up in their company housing. And you can imagine how that turned out. And this is eerily similar to what Marx described with the case of Marianne Walkley in the Kapital, or to other incidences. I talked to a few of you already about factories being locked up and then burning down with everybody in it. Now, nobody burned down in this case, but they all got infected. How lovely. So we said, okay, the eerie thing is when you read Brecht's play, it basically reads like a manual for 2020. I'm just waiting for the end to happen. He didn't imagine COVID and Putin, but the rest is pretty spot on. That's basically like clairvoyance for you in theater. So, my approach to theater and magic is basically based on, like I said, on Alan Moore. I think you all know what I'm talking about, so I'm just going some groundwork. The idea of the art and magic being basically the same thing, and being interchangeable, and that all art, and especially performance art, are stemming from shamanistic rituals. We have in theater a lot of, when you look at the evolution of theater with the Greeks, with the Middle Ages. There's a lot of magic in there. It comes from the ritual pieces. It comes from rituals of people gathering and experiencing basically another reality. During university, we had a lesson that stuck to mind. It was a small lesson, but a teacher of mine came on stage and says, "Yeah, now this stage is this chair is Polonius, right?" Everybody was okay. This is Polonius, and I realized suddenly, no, wait, he isn't just saying anything. Now he changed reality. Everybody, like 100 people in this room, now believe this is Polonius. This is a reality happening. And I just love this idea, because in Germany also theater is to be, a lot of people say, yeah, it's entertainment for the rich, and it actually is, but we have a fringe scene which actually tries to come back to theater being a social power, and I think this idea of a lot of people suddenly having the same idea in the same room, that is pretty powerful, and that is what I consider magic. So, yeah, I'm still on time, perfect. Yeah, but a bit nervous about the ticking clock. Now, these were some of my collaborators. I'll just go like this. Unfortunately, I can't present everybody, but I can present you a few. I'm in the upper left corner. This is, well, the person was called Lena Winkel back then when they were my co-producer and co-director. Now they are Leon Winkel. They actually transitioned. We have Bavarian Hamburg State Opera composer Samuel Penderbane. If you hear those squeaky rhythmic pig noises, he composed that as a ritual drumming made out of pig squeals. This is Moritz Eggert, one of Germany's most famous composers and crazy guys. He did the Neo-Brecht song in the end. This is Wolfgang M. Schmidt, a critic, and he has a YouTube channel called Film Analysis, which is now also in English. I highly recommend it. It's really, really interesting. He does ideology critical film analysis of a lot of mainstream movies. We had this little piggy here is from a Japanese rubber artist called Cyborg, Saikoi. And we also had the XelK collective. XelK is a collective of queer, kinky artists in Hamburg, which I work on a regular basis with. They also did the shibari work you saw in the trailer. This is an opera singer I know, Franziska Buchner, and the rest are some actors as well. So yeah, it's a pretty huge team, a pretty huge cast, and now I'm showing some examples of how the whole thing looked. So this was the stage with lights done beautifully by Boris Eldachsen, an artist from Berlin who is also into the occult. He has a huge occult library, and he tried to make this in this concert hall. He tried to make like a ritual space where we can gather. As you can see, there's empty chairs because there was no audience, obviously. That is why, and the chairs all have like social distance between them. So we had this as an opening. During the production, we tried to actually make an altar. And by the way, this is all serious. I mean that pretty honest and serious. It's not like a cynical point of view of magic. I actually thought to build an altar through performance and through those shibari artists from XelK. And they built an altar based on that, what Marx wrote about the case of Mary Ann Walkley. For everybody who doesn't know it, another girl who was worked to death and who was, by her boss, was fed with sherry and coffee so that she stays awake for 26.5 hours. She was, I think, 16, just died. And this is basically her spirit we were conjuring and tried to build her an altar because she's the ultimate sacrifice for the working class. Here's another close-up of the altar, which, as I said, just happened in a performative way. Yeah, I already told you that. We had a band in the background. The band was, especially for that project, I mean, obviously the musicians knew each other, but they tried this doom metal project just for this concert. In the movie, there's a lot of lengthy musical numbers because it's supposed to be a concert, so of course you gotta give the music some room. But we all, every time there was a song, we had like parallel actions in the whole room. And this is me offering coffee and sherry to the ghost of Mary and Walkley. This is actually inspired by a voodoo ritual, which I got from, no, this is the wrong one. I should have prepared for that. Where's the book? There's the book. There's the book. Small book, self-published, and it describes from Papa Shanga. It describes some voodoo rituals. I went through it, and there's a lot of stuff about fear in there, about fear and about crying out for the help of gods, for the help of the lowers, the spirits. And I thought, okay, who are the lowers I cry out to when I have fear? And these were actually Bertolt Brecht and Karl Marx. Because it was their text that gave me some hope, or just showed me, no, you're not alone. You're not alone. You weren't alone like 100 years ago, you're not alone now. And this is why I tried to do this. But, of course, I couldn't let anyone answer this ritual. So we cried out for the lowers, and nobody answered. There was a long silence during this part. And then suddenly this neo-Brechtian song you heard in the end started playing from somewhere. Don't get an answer from those guys, because theater is not there for answers, it's there for questions. And then this song just gave you more and more questions, but maybe those questions actually bring us a bit further than we are right now. In the end, the audience melts with the main character, with Saint Joan, and goes down this alley right up to the stage. Actually, I won't spoil the end for everybody who hasn't seen it. Maybe you want to click on the video. You do not need to like and subscribe, since it's not my channel. I don't really care. I just care for the clicks. So, perfect timing. So that my last point is, as you saw, I mixed up a lot of stuff, which is pretty normal. I was going to say postmodernism, but I actually liked that thing in the keynote. What was it? Metamodernism? I really loved that. I didn't understand it, but I really loved it. I will definitely steal that word. Now, the problem is, as I said, white people. There's no POC in my cast, or there weren't any POC in this cast. Doing voodoo, is that okay? And as you can see, I already imply it's questionable, actually. I mean, in our popular culture, voodoo is, most of the people know voodoo from James Bond, Live and Let Die, or from that Disney movie, what's it called? Frog and the Princess, I think. Princess and the Frog, all the way around, yeah, you know what I mean. And so voodoo for us is like a laughable boogeyman. And then we actually do voodoo. I think we should talk about this. And I talked about this to Germany's leading voodoo expert in Essen, a city called Essen, who has his own museum of voodoo, and he's also a white guy. I was like, okay, I kind of want to be politically correct. What's the problem here? And he actually, voodoo is actually forbidden in Germany because there are animals killed. I was like, are you serious? Chinese kills animals like in the most cruel way every day, but this is not allowed. Yeah, this is not allowed. And this is why I said, okay, Christianity, or our Christian origin, did not get us to a point where we like to be. It did bring us to a system which is ruled by the markets. So we definitely need to look somewhere else. We can't look at our own origin. And that is why I said, no, we need to look at voodoo, because they have maybe a healthier approach to that. And I want us to think about that. And this is why I said, okay, no, we appreciate this thought and we want to try it out ourselves, even if it goes wrong. So I try to think of it not as cultural appropriation, but actually as artistic appreciation. And but I do realize I can't just wish the problem of cultural appropriation away. It is there, and that is why I said, okay, for every cent we make with this production, we give a donation to this place. It's the Opera Village in Benin, the Republic of Benin. It's founded by German director Christoph Schlingensief in the upper right corner, who sadly passed away a few years ago. And he tried to build up a huge social place in the opera in the middle of the desert of Benin. And the Opera Village is still there, but mostly for social purposes. And every cent we make with our production, there's like 10% going to that, so that we also have at least given something back, even if we borrowed the concept of voodoo, which is also not exclusively, but also from Benin. Yeah, so since I'm running out of time, I'll skip a bit ahead, but I would be happy to hear your guys' opinions about that, maybe in the question section, or I'll be here all weekend. The last thing, as I said, is that I want theater to actually dare more magic. I think theater needs to go back to its roots, or going full circle basically. We had this phase where it was like just entertainment. We still have that. I mean, there was actually this notion by Alan Moore that opera is the most magical thing because it's alchemy in theater, and he said, yeah, Monteverdi said that as well. As usual with Alan Moore, he's a bit sketchy about his sources. I never found that quote with Monteverdi, and I really looked. But I think the thought counts, and the thought is actually pretty beautiful. And this is why we, this year, or this season, this theater season, again producing with the same team, a piece in the city of Münster with the Theater of Münster called Tranceformation, Kinky Kafka. This is not a typo, I mean that. Tranceformation will be a piece about, a performance piece, again in the form of a performance party, of a queer kinky performance party where the audience is invited to participate. There's no chairs, there's just a huge space where we all try to go through different Kafkaesque stages of enlightenment. And transformation is not only about the people who actually transition right now in a narrower sense, like doing the transition of gender, sexual identity, and sexual character, but also about all stages of coming out, about not fitting into society, and maybe also about transformation of the society. There's a lot of questions. I don't have any answers yet. That's just what we want to research in. Yeah, so should anybody of you want to visit beautiful Germany this season, on May 27th, we will have the Transformation Party premiere in Theater Münster. Looking for other venues right now, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I never imagined myself at university that I turned from director to mad mumbling shaman, but I hope we have at least something where we can use especially performance art and theater art again to make a socially relevant point. And this is 2:25 p.m. right on time. Thank you. Should I stay here? What's the procedure now?
Stay. Fantastic. We've got time for a couple of questions. Anyone, want to open?
Any thoughts?
Yeah, back there.
I don't know who was first, actually.
More of a comment and a question,
yeah.
I guess. But just in terms of the political correctness thing with voodoo, I don't think it's a really real issue whether you have brown people or not. And I say that because I think even the term people of colour is kind of a funny one, because like black and white and even brown aren't really colours. If anyone's coloured, we're pink. But anyway, that aside, like the thing with voodoo, it's already very syncretic. It's totally syncretic, and it has been for like hundreds, probably thousands of years. So I think it's different when a tradition is like this. Some traditions they have managed to keep them really pure. For example, the Australian Aboriginals.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't mix Australian Aboriginal law with other stuff. And I have made the mistake of doing that in the past, but then I realised they've actually made a point of keeping their tradition pure, and they're full-on about that. Yeah. Whereas, like, voodoo has been syncretic for so long that, it's appropriated Catholicism and all these other things, or Catholicism appropriated it, etc. And so it's already such a mishmash, and I think it's kind of silly by now to sort of say, it has to be like this or it has to be like that, because anything goes as thing. But at the same time, I think it's important to have some serious practitioners who've really gone deep into it. Yeah. So for it still to be done with respect for the traditions, and allowing the innovation and the newness to happen, but still having people who actually really know it and understand it, not just like people who are like, oh, that looks interesting, let's try this, So as long as it's done with that depth and respect, I don't think it's
I hope for this as well. We actually had no complaints. We had no negative comments about that. But either way, I wanted to make sure that it happens with respect to the tradition and to the people who uphold this tradition to this very day. That's why I thought, of course, it's a utopian thought to say, okay, can't we just forget this division between people for a moment and focus on the important things? But no, we can't right now. We are not on that. We are not in this place, unfortunately, and we still have a lot of political discourse to go through till we are there. But it's a true thought. True that.
To do things anyway allows that discussion.
I hope so.
Things to change. I saw a good summation of it on a Chaos Magic group that someone was saying, I think the lower have been culturally appropriate.
Right, we're going to jump to the back, so I know we've got simultaneous
I'll
sessions.
be here the rest of the week.
It's just a comment.
No.
It was an extremely powerful piece of film, and I think that you both would agree it was extremely powerful. And
Thank you.
I'm probably going to lie in bed tonight and ask myself multiple questions about what a lot of those issues it brought up, and it was layered, it was beautifully filmed, everything flowed. There was a few times where fear raised its head for me, repulsion, and then joy. It was really bizarre the way I reacted to it. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
We still have a couple of minutes. I've got a question. Bringing the audience back. So bringing the audience back in.
Yeah.
So this was obviously done in COVID and it was filmed. Yeah. And your next one won't be. But how are you feeling, and how is it going to change, do you think, the practice as soon as you bring people that aren't as aware of what's going on, and actually bringing them into that and making your thoughts on bringing them, or the dauntingness or the idea of bringing them back in?
It will be irritating for them, definitely. And we already thought about that. There will be like a transitioning period from outside of the theater to the venue, that you go through different stages already, maybe in small groups, where you have like, let's call it mini workshops actually, where you slowly get eased into the idea of now being part of something and not a spectator. You're a spect-actor basically. And of course you only have to act as much as you want. I won't force anybody on anything. Some interactive pieces do that. I hate that practice. It should always be an offer to participate. And if you want to stay on the wall going like this, it's your choice. But I want you to make that, to be able to make that choice, because I can't sit for that long in a theater. I hate it when I have to sit for 2 hours and go like, So I want to participate. And when you have the form of party, most of the people do know how to behave at a party. So this is actually a technique for them to ease into it. Do you guys know this technique of we call it Krimi dinner, like crime investigation games done during dinner. Yeah, everybody knows how to be a detective. So they can go really easy into it, and most of the interactive pieces or interactive city tours are around, you have to solve a mystery. Everybody knows how to solve a mystery. And that is actually an easy way for people to be into an immersive, interactive experience and to get them into a ritual. I think party is the right thing, because party basically is nothing else than dancing around a fire while music is playing, while the rhythm is playing. And I want to conjure their archaic ideas, which I think they still have, but you actually know this. You know how to do it. You party all the time. You know how to behave. But this time, let's do it seriously.
Thank you.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got one more round. Why not?